Hey, I'm lazy and I like to take shortcuts. This streamer is a great one if you like to take shortcuts.
That's a big round.
All right, so this is literally the easiest streamer you're ever gonna tie. First, I'll start off with my thread and thread. My thread's name is Fred, right in front of the bead. And you wanna leave about a bead's worth, a little bit more, in front. And then I'm gonna just come behind this. You just hold the bead and kind of skip behind it with the thread, so now it's on the other side. Again, leaving enough room, and that just locks the bead right in. Next, we're going to move to our tailing material, and I'm going to grab a hank of it like that thick. Thing is, this has to be a little bit thinner, so something like that. Then I just like to pull it, give it a couple wraps, and then just kind of pull it to the just behind the bead like that, and we'll just fasten it in. Like so. All right, from the length of this, I want to go 1 times the shank length, about 2 times the shank length. So about right there is where we're going to cut it. And I use my Fiskars on these guys. I don't like razor scissors getting dulled by this. And we'll trim this a little bit so you can kind of cut it at an angle. But we'll come back in here and trim these up in a minute. Now I'm going to grab some lateral scale or crystal flash, whatever you want, and I usually like 2 to 3 fibers per side. So I'll just take the middle of this, stick it right behind the bead there, like that. Right, so trim those to length. Now I'm going to grab my body material, which again, going on the theme, this has to be super easy. Stupid easy. So this is a flash baitfish brush. It is the 2-inch size, and by 2 inches it means it's got a total length of fibers of 2 inches. And in order to kind of gauge that, I want the fibers to be about halfway down my tail length when I tie these in, because they're going to be brushed back. And so what I'll do is I'll just bare a little bit of wire, and I'm going to tie this in about halfway between where I stopped those wraps and the bead. And you just want to secure that real good. Now I leave a space there because this needs to taper back, and as I wrap this forward, these are going to be brushed back, so you don't need to really jam a ton of wraps in here. This is you can actually tie a lot of flies with just one of these brushes. So advance my thread back to in front of the bead, and so what we'll do is we'll just start to wrap forward, and then you can preen these fibers back. And we'll usually do 2 or so wraps behind the bead. So we've got 2 wraps there. And then we're going to go over the bead into the front. And again, you just need to preen those back as you go. This looks pretty nasty right now, but okay, then we've got 1 full wrap in front. And then just bring your thread couple wraps, and then a couple wraps in front of it. And after being lost for 2 months, I found my famous wire cutting scissors. They're in a bag. And I'm just going to come up here, and I like to clip these, so you can use these type of just trashy scissors, or you can use like wire flush cutters. We'll put links to both of those in the description. The recipe's in the description anyway. Okay, now that's tied off, and what I'll do here is just build up a little thread hump. But before we do that, we're going to brush it out a little bit. So I just grabbed my Stonfo combo brush, and we're just going to brush these guys back. And make sure you get all the ones that are bound around the bead as you've made those wraps. And this starts to open up and starts to look a little bit more like a bait fish profile. Not quite yet. We're gonna cut it and apply a head, and then I just work my thread back up there to clean off the head here. Right, so I just want enough room right there to put the little eye, because I'm going to build a head with some resin. But that's about it. We can whip finish and start on our resin. Right, so I'm going to grab my eyes, and I just affix one of these little eyes. They're somewhat adhesive, so I just try to get them to stick on there until I get my resin on. Okay, once I've got the eyes on there, I'm going to take a little bit of UV resin. I'll use the thick or the thin, and best way is to hold the eyes together, and then I'm just going to come in here and put a little resin right in between the eyes, and that's going to kind of fix them in place while I hold it. Just make sure you don't get any on your fingers. Boom. And we'll do the same on the bottom and around. All right, once you've got the resin on there, I'll usually just come in and rotate this and kind of place the resin going around. Smooth it out. And then you can put some Loon Flow or whatever thin, non-tacky sort of resin you want to just kind of finish it off. But doesn't have to be super pretty, just a bait fish head. Now we're going to trim this up. So what I want to do is get kind of fluffy all over. So I'm going to come in here and lift these fibers up, because when these are in the water, they're going to get pulled back. So I want them to kind of get the full spectrum. And then I just come in here and give a trim to taper it down, and I'll include the tail material. So that way when this is wet, it's just going to come back into that bait fish profile. And do the same on the bottom and around. And then as the final thing, and this is the bee's knees, as the kids say these days, is you get some thinning scissors. The link for these will be in the description below. But these will actually cut not all the hair, and that kind of gets in here and thins these out in a taper. And I'll also do that towards the tail end. And that just makes sure that this has a really nice taper all the way down. I don't know if they call these thinning shears or taper scissors, but you can cut across the whole width of the material, and it's not going to cut every fiber, so you're not really butchering it. You're just giving it a nice thin profile. And I just do that when I see thick spots. You just get in there and thin them out, and that will basically do it. The other thing is this thins it in 3 dimensions. So if you look at it this way, you can see how it tapers back, going back that way. So those scissors are really cool. It's a relatively easy fly to tie streamer good bait fish. Minnow pattern, the bead kind of helps it sink, but not sink too fast, and the materials will give it some form. Fish in lakes, rivers, anywhere you have little bait fish. Then as a final thing, usually just like most bait fish, are going to have some level of color to them. And I'll just come in here with a gray or green marker, whatever suits your fancy, and then just give that a good streak on the top, and that just darkens the top. You don't have to worry about any other color of material. You just dab it with the marker and you are set. All the materials for this will be found in the link below. Give it a whirl. It's easy to tie.